SQology podcast. Many thanks to Resonix Sound Solutions for making this podcast a reality. There's a link in the show notes, but you can find out more about Resonix sound treatments along with tons of other info, resources, and products at resonixsoundsolutions.com. Now on with the show. I'm here today with Johnathan Price. Some may know him as JP. Welcome, Johnathan.
Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Most people nowadays probably know John from Down4Sound. But where'd you get started in car audio, and what'd your first system look like?
What a story. Got started in car audio when I was I guess I got bit by car audio when I was 12 or 13. I was with my mom in her van at the time, and we pulled up to this red light and started hearing this noise. I'm like, what is that? And my mom's all disgusted by it, and I'm like, I was intrigued by it. And anyway, I look over and this guy's in this truck and his roof is flexing and like it's making all this racket. And I'm like, man, that's so cool. To me, my mom, again, was disgusted by it. But anyway, he took off and I didn't know even what it was because I didn't know anything about car audio at that time. I was just a kid. So fast forward a couple of years later, I had gotten in Mississippi, you could get a hardship license, so you could drive at 14.
Okay.
Or 14 and a half or something like that. Anyway, you could drive, but just back and forth to work. So
sure.
I went to work and I was coming back, and I hear this sound again, and I'm like, where's it coming from? What is that? And I'm sitting at a red light, and that guy pulls up beside me again, and I'm like, no way. And I'm watching him, and the light turns green. I'm like, I'm going to follow this guy until, like, wherever he goes, I'm full creeper mode. Like,
figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I'm following him through town. So he pulls up to this gas station. I pull up beside him. I'm like, hey, man, I'm like not trying to be creepy or whatever, but what is that? What's going on in there to make all that noise? And he's like, oh, it's like subwoofers. He ended up owning not owning, he worked at a car audio shop in town or whatever. And he had, I think at the time, like 2 Rockford whatever, like the big Rockford subs, and like it was
right.
2 of them in the back. And I'm like, man, can I see it and hear it? And he's like, yeah, no problem. So he let me see it, and I felt it for the first time. And I'm like, man, so ever since that day, I've been like addicted to car audio, and it obviously started out at a very low level. And I think my first system, I had a Chevy truck or whatever. So I just had 2 low power JBL 12s in an under seat box with like 1,000 watts on it. So that's how I got started, and it kind of blew up from there. But that was many moons ago.
I hear you. So what got you? Did you start competing first? Did you get in the industry first? Like where'd you ramp into things?
So I've never been a competitor. I've just always liked to go to shows and have fun and
sure.
Just share the experience with other people. And I know everybody has their thing and what they enjoy, but I've just always enjoyed having a bunch of people come through and experience it, and like go and experience their vehicles as well. Like I love getting demos from other people, even like high-end sound quality setups. Like I love. There's so much more that goes into sound quality systems than like big bass systems. Like it is so technical when you get on the SQ side, and I have like a lot of appreciation for the guys that do that. When I get to hear one, is to me is totally different than what I'm used to. I'm used to these bass heavy, very pro audio, super loud, over the top vehicles. But when I get a chance to listen to something that's sound quality, it's a treat for me, because I know how much work goes into it, and it's a lot of appreciation for me. So, but anyway, that's like how I kind of got into going to shows, and again, like not competing. I may have competed a couple of times, like just randomly, but it just wasn't my thing. And a lot of people say, oh, you don't compete because you're not loud or whatever. I'm like, okay, like whatever you want to say.
Well, and on SPL, you can kind of prove yourself there without having to compete, right? I mean, that's kind of part of the draw and differentiation between, I think, SQ and SPL as far as that goes, because on the competition side with SPL, nowadays anyway, most people kind of know where they line up before you show up. It's like, I know how loud I am, I know how loud that class is, I know who's going to be in that class, so I know about where I'm going to stack.
Yeah, that's true. So that's kind of how I was just a avid car audio fanatic. Like I didn't know anything about business or anything like that, or even consider selling car audio one day, like until 9 years ago. So that's kind of when it changed for me. But yeah, my whole life I was just into car audio and speakers and amps and all that good stuff.
So what was your first memorable event that you went to and kind of got that feeling of the either giving demos or receiving demos that got that spurred off? Because I feel like that is a big part of your known genre as far as, you know, people who know you is from that and your builds that you demo, right? I mean, that at least starting out, that was a big thing. Right.
One of the first ones was I took a trip down to Daytona Beach. They had spring break nationals back in my day, but that was the go-to show or whatever, and everybody was talking about it on the forums, like SMD forums, caraudio.com, like all these forums. Like now it's been replaced with all the social media outlets or whatever. I mean, they're probably still there, but I'm sure they're dwindling. So everybody was talking about like spring break nationals, and I'm like, what is it? So I started looking into it, and I take the trip down there, and I'm like, man, it was just so many people, so many builds. I mean, I didn't really have like a considerable build at the time or anything. I just wanted to go down there. I think I may have had my Tahoe at the time, but it may have had, I don't know, like a single 15 in it or something. Like, so it was like totally different than like it wasn't worth me going to like demo it or whatever. So anyway, I went there and experienced all these different builds and saw people blowing their windshields out. And I'm like, man, this is just a crazy thing. So that's my first most memorable thing, is going to Spring Break Nationals.
About what year was that? Do you remember?
15, 16 years ago. So I'm not good at math.
No, I remember, I think it was 2000. Man, I think the last year I was down there was maybe around 2013. Okay. And they had the demo hall. Like they had an actual, like that. The only reason I bring it up is because it's the only year that I really remember where like they had the SPL competition, SQ competition, then they had like a whole hall just for demos that they set up. And yeah, man, I
went until they quit having it. So yeah. I was there. I remember that.
Yeah. It was like I never even walked in, but it was crazy loud just from the hallway. Like it was insane.
Right.
But not to harp on the competition side, but I mean, with you not competing, what was the incentive for you to do a big build like that?
I guess I've always had like some sort of competitive nature, or maybe with myself, like wanting to be better and go to the next level and take my system to the next level. So I would go and then also when you go and experience these other people's builds, and like it feels that way, and you're like, oh, I gotta get louder. So like that, the bass bug was just inside of me, and I'm like, I was always looking to get a bigger amp or add a sub or more mids or whatever. So that was kind of how that happened. The more I got involved in it, the more I wanted to like increase my output in my vehicle. So it was just an addiction. And I still suffer from it today.
I mean, what kind of power, subs, everything else, what was your first big build like that you brought out?
A lot of people know like my 1018s build that I did like back in the day. It was 10 PSI like platform 3 18s, and I think I had 5 Sundown 4500 watt amps. That's what I was running, and that's kind of what got me on the map of like, and because I was starting to make videos and people were watching the demo reactions. And back then it was probably doing 155 or something like that. But back then a 55 was a big deal at the time. Like now, like people were doing 65s out of their garage. Like it's no big deal anymore. But anyway, so that was kind of what put me on the map of getting a lot of engagement and a lot of people's attention, because I was driving it everywhere, and I would like whenever I stopped to get gas, like somebody would look in or like be walking by, like, man, what you got in that thing? And they'd look and, can I hear it? Of course. And so like those, we call them the gas station demos, but I would
those be are the most fun sometimes because it's like just random. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's so like candid, and like people like their genuine reactions, and the reactions from people like that aren't going to car audio shows are way, I guess, more hype, because if somebody's going to a car audio show, they probably already know about bigger levels of car audio or whatever. Like most people that get into my vehicle, they know like what to expect. They've seen a ton of demos or whatever. So they're not so surprised by it, but you get like a random person off the street in there and they get hit with 165 dB. They're like freaking out.
Experience.
Yeah, so it makes for a great reaction video. But anyway, I was driving to all these shows and started like doing demos with that build, and that's really what like got my foot in the game of car audio. I guess on social media, like I just started with YouTube, so it's just grown from there.
And I was going to ask, I guess platform was YouTube, and did you just start from scratch there? Did you already have kind of a following, or what was your strategy there? Yeah,
so when I first got started, I had a YouTube channel, and I think I grew it to maybe 20 or 30,000 subscribers. And but this was before I knew or started any business or whatever. I was just like growing a following, like going to shows or whatever. But anyway, somebody back in my day, there wasn't like two-factor authentication, so it was easy for people to hack your stuff. And so anyway, somebody hacked my account, deleted all my videos, and like all this work that I'd put in over the years, it was just gone. And I'm like, man, I'm not going to do this again. Like, screw this. Like, so anyway, I was on, maybe it was MySpace at the time. It's just funny to say that. But anyway, I was on there and a couple of people were like, what happened to your channel? Like, you should start uploading again. I'm like, I'm not going to upload stuff again because people can just take it or like whatever. And I never felt like, and not too long after that, I think they came out with a two-factor authentication thing. So it made it like a lot more secure. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll start doing it, but I don't feel safe starting again on that channel. I just felt like it had been compromised. So that's when I started the Life of Price YouTube channel. And because I knew it would be more than just car audio. It would be random like stuff.
A vlog style thing.
Yeah, so I renamed it, and then like I started growing the following again, and YouTube is where it started at. And then since I was just going to shows and doing what I love to do, and I wasn't selling anybody anything, it grew organically and pretty fast for that reason. Like people just enjoyed seeing the videos and the reactions, and the more people that followed me on there, they started asking like, "What's your Facebook page? What's your Instagram? What's your Snapchat?" Like so. Anyway, it just kind of all has cross-pollinated over to all these other social media platforms over the years.
Very cool. So what was your ramp from doing that? Obviously, you're in the industry now as, I assume, primarily internet reseller and then with your own brand as well. But what was your path into doing that? Like as far as going from doing the video thing, and obviously you had the following, and I would assume that there were people that would approach you as far as doing some kind of endorsements or advertising and stuff like that. I mean, did you start there or did you go straight into doing business for yourself?
Yeah, I started by like trying to get sponsorships and stuff like that. Like I guess everybody does in car audio. It's funny like to reflect back on that because now multiple times a day people are asking me for sponsorships, right? So I get it. But so I was doing, I was going to shows, and like the bigger I was trying to grow my build, I was reaching out to companies and trying to get like some sort of sponsorships. And by the way, sponsorships are most of the time like some percentage off, like free ride sponsorships are almost non-existent. So anyway, I was trying to get some percentage off so I could do these bigger builds, and I was running Sundown, Excess Power, like these types of things. So whenever I would go to shows, people would get a demo and they had asked, obviously, where do you get this equipment from? And I would tell them, go to Sundown or go to Excess Power or whatever it might be. And after, like, I don't know, a season, I don't know how many times it took people asking me that, but finally I was at some show and somebody asked me, where do you get this equipment from? It was like, the light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, I could be selling these people this stuff if I could just figure out how, but I didn't know anything about business or how to start a business, run a business.
What were you doing as far as your day job back then?
At that time, I was working 4 jobs. Like my main job was working at an airport where I catered to like private aircraft. I fueled them, cleaned them, serviced the labs, like, and then inside the building, I would sweep the floors, vacuum, like clean the toilets. I didn't care. Like my dad always gave me like a very hard work ethic. So at that time I was doing that. And I also had a small lawn care business. So I was cutting grass. I had about 10 yards a week that I was cutting, like when I'd be off from the job at the airport. And on top of that, I was detailing cars and airplanes for people out at the airport. My boss would, if we were slow, he would let me like do that as like a side hustle. So, and then I somehow found some extra time, and I'm like, what can I do with these few hours on these few days that I have on these other days? Right. So I started waiting tables at this restaurant in town, and now I go back and like every time I go home, I go eat there or whatever. So, but at one time I was doing all four of those things at one time, like to just, all I knew is like I wanted to make money because I thought I had to do that to to be successful. Right. So, and at that time, all I knew was to trade hours of my life for dollars, which is the normal thing to do. But I just kept finding extra hours here and there. So I'm like, I'll just try to find some more work to do. Yeah. So,
where were you living at the time?
I was a classic failure to launch episode. I lived with my parents until I was 31. So, I was living with them, and I was
what area?
Oh, sorry, Greenville, Mississippi. Okay. So in the South. Yeah. So that's how, like, I was doing all those things when I had that idea. And then, obviously I had to figure out, how do you start a business? What does that look like? And then what's the first steps of after you actually get your business license, like to reach out to these companies to become a dealer and like all that stuff. So anyway, that's kind of how that started and transitioned into like me actually offering product to sell.
So were you actually like warehousing product like in the garage at the time, or were you just drop shipping, or how were they letting you do that?
So I started out drop shipping, but with drop shipping, and it's probably still like this to this day, like there's a lot less margin in it because you don't have any risk and you're not helping them by warehousing their product or whatever.
You're basically getting a commission on product. Yeah.
Right. But I'm like, I didn't have any money either. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'll just take whatever I can get. If I was clearing 5 or 10% after like everything was said and done, like, hey, that's better than nothing. So I was taking the piece of the pie that I could get, and then fast forwarded, I like kept saving my money and like, okay, I can do a little buy-in, and I would buy the product and they would ship it to my parents' house, and I'd put it in my parents' attic. So I was like processing the orders at my mom's or at my parents' house, and then it grew a little bit from there, and I bought like a 10 by 10 storage unit that was nearby, and then I also started putting it. My dad got a new shed built in the backyard, so I started putting it in there. I had product, like it was just growing, and product was getting everywhere, but that's how it started though.
As it grew, once you said, okay, I have product to sell, and yes, I can sell it to you, what was your primary customer base from at that point? Was a mixture of like the YouTube and the demos? Was it more closing deals when you were at shows and stuff, or what was the balance there?
It was more social media. Like, obviously when I would go to places and going to shows and them getting a demo and them asking me where can I get it from, that was kind of planting the seed there. Like, oh, you can,
but not really the execution.
Right. Yeah, it very rarely, at shows I was just selling T-shirts and stickers and stuff like that for Down4Sound. I started with that, and then it would put the seed in their head. So after I got the website started, then it made it easier. Before that, I was just telling them like, hey, shoot me a message I was doing everything one by one. Like, because it was really slow at that time. I might get a sale once every 2 weeks or something. Mm-hmm. And it could be for a set of tweeters or something So it started out like really, really small, just like everybody does. But anyway, so I would just have them message me, or like whether it's text or Facebook or email or whatever, they would just contact me that way through Messenger, and I would do it all manually, like get them to PayPal me or whatever the payment method was. I couldn't take a credit card. I didn't even know anything about credit cards at that time, so I couldn't even.
Quite as easy as it is now to get all that set up either. So
not at all.
What brands did you start out with?
Yeah, it was Excess Power, Sundown, and Scar were my first 3 brands that I sold. So and
you've developed a pretty good relationship with Sundown and Excess over the years, right? At least,
right. Yeah. Yep. Good.
So how many brands do you carry now?
We got to where we had probably, I would say 15 or 18, but I've kind of changed my path or my journey to So I went from not selling that many brands to like, oh, if I sell more brands, like you get more chances to make sales or whatever. But a lot of complications come along with that you don't see from the other side. Like the first thing is you don't have control of the inventory. And when you're drop shipping most of the stuff, you keep getting caught with your pants down, basically. Like
somebody
you
else
sell
doesn't
the
have
thing.
the product.
Yeah, and then you're stuck, or you have to refund the customer, and it leads up to a bad customer experience. So it ended up not being a good thing to be trying to juggle 20 brands. So over the years, I've been, especially the past, I guess, 4-ish years, I've been trying to bring the level of brands that I have and offer down, because I don't want to be, I'm not trying to be the best at offering 20 different brands. I want to be the best at primarily my brand, but secondarily to that, like a top 4 or 5. But currently we probably have 8, something or 9, something like that. But I'm whatever the slower movers are, like we're working on moving them out, and like we'll just, again, so much of my focus now is Down4Sound brand. So it's just the next stepping stone for me to grow the Down4Sound baby, if you will.
Sure. Backing up a second again, we start out, you said Mississippi, and you're in Vegas now, right?
Correct.
So how'd you transition? How'd you go from Mississippi to Vegas?
I met my wife.
Okay.
So I met her, and one thing led to another, and we started dating, and then I didn't have anything really tying me to Mississippi, and she had a young daughter at the time or whatever. So I'm like, nothing's really holding me to Mississippi. Some of my family lives here, but like I don't have a kid or a prior relationship or anything like that. So the only thing that makes sense is for me to move. And so moved out here and started from scratch.
So when you moved there, did you just continue what you were doing before, just relocate and then working out of garage, shed, space, whatever? Or?
Yeah, so I didn't have that much product at all, but the product that I did have, I shipped it out here, and I put it in her garage. But the airport at the time, like before I left, was my main source of income. So when I moved out to Vegas, there's no grass to cut. I don't have any detailed clients, and yeah, I could have went and waited tables, but I'm like, okay, the thing that I'm the best at right this second is working around an airport, like pumping gas into jets, like catering to them or whatever. So I'm like, oh, I'll just go to they're called FBOs, or these businesses that private jets go to. So I'm like, I'll just go to all the FBOs. There's 3 different airports in Vegas, and there's multiple FBOs at each one. I'll just apply at all of them, and of course I'll get hired. So anyway, I moved all my stuff out there, and I go and apply to all these places, and I'm kind of like sitting around waiting for somebody to call, and a week goes by, weeks go by, like it's coming up on months going by, and I'm like, man, what? Every day I'm watching my wife leave to go to work, and I'm sitting here at the house like a bum. Like I started feeling like really, I don't know, worthless, because like as guys, like we're usually projected as like you're supposed to be this provider for your family, for your household, like the rock, like all this stuff. So
especially when you came from being known in your area, I'm sure, with 4 different jobs, like you could do whatever you want whenever you want, because you had that clientele already set up.
Right. I kind of got into a slump, and
how old were you at the time when this?
30-ish, 31, 32.
Right.
So I'm sitting there like at the house by myself, like wondering what's wrong with me. Like, why is nobody calling me? Like, I'm the perfect fit for all these businesses or whatever. Like, they don't have to teach me anything. So anyway, time's going on, and I end up, like, I'm on social media, and somebody makes a post like, hey, I'm looking for a sundown, whatever. And I wasn't posting a lot at that time about like selling stuff. That, again, was a fault of my own, but I saw somebody asking for a sundown sub, and I'm like, oh, I can get you that. I'll shoot you a message. Anyway, I got them taken care of, got the order, and I made a video or a picture. I think it was a video. I made a video like of going to get the product, signing like, thank you, Billy, for your order. I really appreciate it. And like I made a little video about it, and I put it on my like Facebook and maybe Instagram and some other outlets, and that like got somebody else's attention. They're like, oh, I didn't know you sold car audio. Like, and I'm like, yeah, like here, check out my website or whatever. Right. So But it's just that thing of if you're out of sight, out of mind, if like nobody knows or nobody sees it, like they just can't purchase from you, obviously. So I'm like, oh, well, let me take care of this person. So I took care of that person, and I'm like, well, let me try that again to see if it will get more attention or engagement, and like maybe reel some other people in. And sure enough, every time I would do it, well, not every time, most of the time when I would do that, it would get somebody's attention, and they're like, oh, I didn't know you sold stuff. I'm like, yeah, here. So it's just that repetitive thing, like, okay, let me keep doing this, and I've done that over the years now for the whole time. So because it's just something that works. Like you just have to be, if you're not out there, you're kind of out of sight, out of mind.
For sure. And on that, I mean, you've definitely had a couple of some might think are marketing stunts or whatever from your end, and obviously I don't know what your intentions going in with it are, but like charging for demos, charging for signatures, stuff like that. What got that kind of stuff going, and was it more just to throw it out there to get the spark, or what led up to that?
So the charging for demos thing is funny to always like talk about this story, but so the way that started, by the way, I've never charged for demos, to just put that out there on the front side. So how that came to be was I went to Slamology all these years ago, but I went to Slamology, and at that time I was selling, I think like I only had stickers. Like I was just getting started, and like, so if somebody got a demo, after the demo and we're talking or whatever, I was like, hey, would you like to support me like by buying a sticker? And they're like, sure. Or they'd say yes or no. So it just so happened that there was a guy at that time. His name was, I think, Richard Mallard. He had a he had a channel called Twisted Child for 20 years.
Yeah, I know Richard.
Anyway, he happened to be walking by, and he saw the person thanking me for the demo, didn't see the sticker or maybe didn't want to or whatever, and they passed me $5 or whatever, and I'm like, oh, thanks, and they got out, and here he goes online, JP's charging for demos. I just saw this guy say thanks for the demo, and he gave me $5. Like, what kind of dude is this? And like, anyway, so when haters get a hold of something that could tarnish somebody that's like up and coming,
more
or
than
whatever,
willing to pump into it. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how that got started on charging for demos. On the signature thing, now, yes, there is a fee for me to like autograph stuff, and I don't have a problem explaining why. When I first got started and was like growing the business, like every now and then somebody would ask, like, hey, will you autograph my speaker? Sure, no problem. Like, but it just grew to this like over
expectation.
Yeah, expectation, and so many people were requesting it. Like I was working by myself, and I was having to unbox all these heavy subs and get them out, and like it was such a time dense thing for me, and I'm by myself, and I'm like, I have to find a way to, but if I told them no, then I was a douchebag. So
right.
like it's like,
at least this way it's yes, but
right, because I did that at first. I'm like, I wouldn't mind, but like I have so much, like it's so much work to do all these signatures or whatever. So I'm like, I'm gonna put like a cost on it so people won't request it. So I put it for $1, and it didn't phase anybody. They're like, oh, $1? Like it seemed like they did it more. Like, so I'm like, okay, I'll make it $5. So it slowed down for a little bit. I'm like, cool. Like it's something that I can manage. And then it's like, I don't know, like a stock over time, like it goes up, and then like, because the price is up, and then it starts falling, and then people don't care anymore, and they start paying for it more and more, and I can't keep up with the demand. So the price is just continually raised over time to, I can't even believe it, because I would never pay anybody for a signature, but that's just me. Everybody's different. Different things make different people happy, and I tell people not to get it. I'm like, don't pay for this. Like, it's like you'll end up selling it or whatever. And they're like, oh, it's going to increase the value though. And I'm like, bro, like, no, it's not. Like, but anyway, so I had to find like over the years, like this constant happy medium of like where I can deal with it. Obviously, I have people now that will unbox it and get it out and get it ready, but it's still, now it slows down our whole production line, like line of shipping out all these products. So it's even more. It's
a combination of where's my signature and when is my product getting here at the same time, right?
100%. So it's went from $5 to $50 over the years. And again, like if you're listening to this, don't pay for it. Don't get it. It's not worth it. It's not a good investment. But people,
hey, again, it is what it is, right?
Whatever makes people happy. If they want me to sign their stuff, like, I'm happy to do it, but it's not a good investment.
So when did you come up with the name Down for Sound? And because I know a lot of people who have transitioned from car audio as hobby to car audio as business, that gets, for some, it stays murky how that line is. Obviously, there was a point when you went, well, this is a company and this is a brand and everything else, even before you started making your own products. But where the Down for Sound name come from, and when did you decide this is official now?
Actually, it was back in the day, like I was coming up with the Down for Sound brand. It was the name Down for Sound. It wasn't a brand, so to speak. It was just, and the reason why I wanted to come up with this was, again, back in the day, when the forums were a popular thing, there was so much trolling and bashing on there. Like it always made me unhappy. And I'm like, these guys, because they would ask a simple question, they're beginners, or like, how do you wire a dual 2 sub to 1 ohm or whatever? And instead of just answering the question, people are like, oh, you're an idiot, you don't know how to blah, blah, blah. Like, they're just ripping the dude. And I'm like, you could have told him in less words.
Less time than it took to be a douche about it, yeah.
Right. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I want to start my own forum so I can, like, and to be able to get on the forum, there's a zero tolerance for trolling or bashing. So, and you had to check like a box to, like, you understand if you do this, you're banned. Like, it's zero tolerance for it. So anyway, I'm like, I need to come up with a name for this. So I was kicking some names around. There was a guy named Gerald Watkins. He had a YouTube channel called 6 Dogs of One. He had some, like, a big system in his vehicle at the time. But anyway, I was good friends with him at the time in the car audio space, and I was kicking around some ideas with him and some other people, and like I was asking him like what he thought of some names were, and we kind of came up with Down for Sound and a few other ones. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'll just post on my Facebook like a little poll and see what people think what is the best one. And Down for Sound got it by like a landslide. Like, they're like, it's perfect. It rolls off the tongue good. Like, it rhymes. Like, it's just like the perfect like brand or whatever. I'm like, okay. So we went with that and started the Down for Sound forum and did that for a while. And that was kind of in the background while getting all the sales and store and stuff like that up and going and selling car audio. And not that long after that, people were transitioning off of forums to social media platforms. And so we ended up letting that go because I'm like, nobody needs this anymore. They just post their stuff on Facebook or like whatever. So
was this after you were in Vegas?
I think it was somewhere around that time, like when I was doing the initial buy-ins and getting the business started. And it was during the time where I was transitioning to Vegas. So like all that stuff was kind of happening
at the same time.
And I was wondering why, because I wasn't selling anything. Like, I wasn't making any money. I was just living at my girlfriend's house like a bum. So
you're like, hey, I can do this stuff though while I'm sitting here being like a bum. So
yeah, finally it started like making, I don't know, the little snowball started going, and luckily it worked out for us.
Sure. Now, the facility you're in now, what kind of square footage is that?
Yeah, so when I moved out, like I said, it was my mom's attic or my parents' house, and then I moved out here, and I was using my girlfriend, which is my wife, now her garage, and then I started taking over some of the kitchen, and then I'm like, okay, I need to get in one of her spare bedrooms that she had. And I'm like, okay, I need to get more room. So I went down the street. I don't know, it was like half a mile, and got 2, I think it was 10 by 10 storage units. Did that for a little while, but I was constantly running back and forth as business continued to grow. It was just not an efficient way of doing things. So I started looking for the first warehouse, and ended up getting a 2,500 square foot warehouse, which took a while because I had a decent amount of product, but I didn't have any cash. Like all the money I would make, I would just dump it right back into
tied up in
inventory. They call it inventory rich, but cash poor. I wasn't rich in any way by them at the time. Like, by the way, but all the money that I had was in product. So I'm like, okay, the company or the place was wanting 3 months of rent in advance, and out here it's $1 or a little bit more than $1 depending on the square footage. like on a smaller place like that, they're like wanting, I don't know, $1 and some cents. So it ended up being like around $3,000 a month. And I'm like, I have like 300 in my account. So,
not 10 grand.
Right. So I'm like, I need to, the only way that I could think of getting more cash was like, okay, I'll sell stuff and I'll not reorder so much and I'll like bring my cash reserve up a little bit. So anyway, I did that. I was there for, I don't know, a couple of years and started out growing it. And then I moved to a 7,500 square foot warehouse, which was like, I don't know, a little over $8,000 a month. And I was there for a couple of years, maybe 3. And then I moved to the one that we're in now is 30,000 square feet. And like each time I grew as well, like the ceiling height grew. So I was able to do taller racks. So the first warehouse, I was 2,500 square feet, 2 pallet positions tall. The second one was 7,500 square feet, 3 pallet positions tall. And this one's 30,000 square feet, 4 pallet positions tall. So we're not just growing square footage wise, we're also growing vertically as well. So the funny story on that, when I moved from a 7,500 square foot warehouse to my 30,000 square foot warehouse, and we had all the racks done and everything, all the products that were in the 7,500 square foot warehouse fit on the first 2 rows of, so all the product to my name.
I all of a sudden I don't feel so big.
Yeah, so like we put it in there, and I'm like, you could see through the whole warehouse, and there was an echo in it and everything. I'm like, man, what the hell did I just do? Like, right? I got way too much space. Anyway, I just started. I'm like, okay, I need to fill it up, so I would order more and more product, and just kept doing that for a while. And we got to a point where we were out of space, and I'm like, man, I need to look for another bigger warehouse. And the one next to me, like there's a wall that's dividing like a 60,000 square foot total space or whatever. So I'm like, oh, I can just knock a hole in the wall or make a cutout and like join the 2 or whatever, and it would be efficient. So I was looking at doing that, and it occurred to me that I wasn't being efficient with my space. Like I had a ton of product, but so much overstock of product that wasn't moving. Right. In business or in selling products, like people really want to try to turn it over in 2 to 3 months. Yeah. I had stuff that like I'd had for a year. Right. So I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. And over the past couple of years, like I've been working on, and also like the business model shifting from selling everybody else's brand to more so selling our brand. We need more, and us getting more and more of our brand, growing the brand and all the different things that we offer. I needed to have space for all the containers of our stuff that was coming in. So anyway, it's taken some years like to bring the levels of the other brands down, or like to get away from the ones that just weren't selling for us good. So, and to transition into more Down4Sound stuff. Like, so now the warehouse is probably 80% Down4Sound products, and the other 20% is the other ones. And now with selling stuff, probably around the same percentage as a sale is going to contain some sort of Down4Sound product, if not be a totally Down4Sound like order that's only Down4Sound stuff. So it's wild to see like the transition that's happened over the past since it started, basically. Like how, like, I mean, that's a business, so you're always pivoting and seeing what works, what doesn't work. So anyway, that's kind of the story.
What's your employee base look like now?
It's 21 right now. So about 21 people.
Is that all there local or?
No, we have, so my main IT guy is actually in Australia. And I've never met him before. He's been with me since day one, and he's one of the ones that pushed me to do a website, because I always thought when I was first getting started, I can just take care of people one-on-one, no problem. Like, small thinking. But anyway, so he's been with me since day one. We also have a lot of affiliates. We have over 50 affiliates for Down4Sound. So they're people that promote us and like get paid a commission on like making sales or whatever. But they don't have any sort of tie to us on having to invest in product to resell it or whatever. They just get a little piece.
So they're using coupon codes or something then for that, or?
Yeah, and links like that are tracked by a place called Lead Dino. And then I have Jacob Scott. He's in Florida. He's one of my main guys with SEO, like posting ads and social media stuff, and also helping come out with like a lot of products that we come out with. He helps with development of them and also packaging. He's good at doing artsy stuff like and Photoshop and all that stuff. Like that's not me. Other than that, all the other people were here in Vegas.
What's your main role now as far as what you're doing?
To do as little as possible. No, I travel a ton. Like I go to a ton of events and shows. I know I'm the face of the company, so
right.
I try to attend as many shows as possible throughout the year and take the Tahoe to these places. And obviously when I'm here, like I try to shoot product pictures like with me in it or just always being involved in it. But as far as like day-to-day stuff of pulling or packing orders or doing customer support like stuff, like it's not so much me. Sometimes people reach out to me on my social media like, hey, I need help with this, and like sometimes I'll help them, but most of the time I'm super busy, so I'll just like, hey, shoot an email to sales@down4SoundShop.com or whatever. So more of I'm trying to zoom out from the business and just kind of hover and make sure things are running as good as possible. And obviously if my managers like have an issue, they can hit me up anytime, like that they can't seem to get their head around or they need some guidance with. So, but that's what I'm trying to do at these current days.
Sure. Speaking of the Down for Sound brand itself and the products surrounding that, some people intentionally go in from the beginning with wanting to do their own product and brand and everything else. You didn't. When and how did that transition come into play, and what was your first steps there?
There was a couple of things that happened around the same time, I guess you could say. Like one of them was Scotty, like at Excess Power. Like I joke with people about and like calling him dad because he's older than all of us. So I was trying to get some wire or something, like some sort of sponsorship on some wire, and he told me to call him, and I called him and he's like, I have no problem like helping you out like with some wire or whatever, but you need to do like your own, think about doing your own brand. And I'm like, man, I don't like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just trying to gas me up for whatever reason. So, but he planted that seed in my head. And over the years, the more that Down for Sound grew, the brand Down for Sound grew, the more people started asking like, oh, when are you going to have your own brand of amp or speakers or whatever? I'm like, well, probably never. Like I'm doing fine, like selling other people's stuff. And it was just like when people were asking me, when I was giving them demos, when people were asking me, where do you get your stuff from? And the light bulb went off in my head. Then people kept asking, and finally one day the light bulb went off in my head. Like, man, I could do this. Like there's obviously a big demand for it. People keep asking for it. So I need to make it happen. So we started out with one of the most popular items that we were selling at the time was like a Scar RP2000, because we were a dealer for them. We were moving a lot of their product, and they got to where they couldn't keep up with the demand of their dealers, and they decided to change their business model to just going direct to consumer. So they ended up cutting their dealers. And I'm like, we should come out with a superior version of a RP2000. And that's when the JP23 version 1 was born. And we brought it in, and like they sold like crazy, just like the RP2000s were selling. Like we were selling them like crazy. And like, okay, what's the next most popular size probably? And then we just expanded out from there. And now we just went through 550 different SKUs. So
wow,
a lot. So we're constantly expanding on stuff, and we listen to our customers and our supporters. And if we keep hearing, obviously you'll have somebody say you need to come out with this, but you're like, okay, mentally I'll write that down. Right. And I'll never hear anybody else ask for it.
Then
so
don't worry about
we're not going to do that. But if I keep hearing somebody say, oh, you need to come out with a DSP. You need to come out with a DSP. So like you keep hearing this 100 times, like, okay, we need to come out with a DSP. But I don't want it to be just any DSP. I want it to be nice. And so currently we're about to finish up the DSP. We got with Drew Jones and sent him some prototypes to check out. And he's like, man, if you could change these two things, I think it would be perfect. And I'm like, got you. So that caused like about a 2-month delay. But when it comes out in about a month, it should be for $400-ish. It should be a strong competitor in the DSP market. So
very cool.
That's the latest.
Right. So what's your design there as far as, I mean, are you going for a size thing? Is it a function thing? Like what was your design goals with the DSP?
So that, I'll be honest, when it comes to DSPs, like that is not my wheelhouse or primary idea whatsoever. That was more Jacob Scott and like him. He's been behind that mostly, and also like working with Drew Jones and stuff. And I'm like, just so my goal with like Down for Sound is to offer people a great product at a great price. Like, I'm not trying to make a ton of money off of a single person. I just want to be fair, and the people, they feel like they got a great value for their dollars. So
Sure.
it's not, people will try to compare things as apples to oranges, like whatever to JL or whatever to Moscone or whatever. I'm like, come on, guys, like you got to be realistic with like what we're doing here. We're not coming out after
A
strictly SQ people like that are just So anyway, when it comes to that and the details of it, like other than it being a smaller footprint and Bluetooth capabilities and being able to adjust it from your phone or your laptop, like all these things, I don't know the details behind or the, I guess you could call it details, like the nitty gritty of it. Like it's out of my knowledge. Like,
I think you answered my question on that as far as what I was after. I mean, it's more what your intention was with the product itself to work in the market that's recently flooded over the past 5-10 years. You know, it's gone from not much to everybody has a DSP to a certain degree, but everybody has an amp too. Everybody has speakers. Like, I mean, and you're obviously selling your own brand there. Well, it makes sense to have something able to complement your own products, especially when you have the storefront itself control over that, to be able to push that product to somebody and probably be able to support it better as well, since you have the design team there on staff who did it.
Right. And working together with like them, and also like with outside people like Drew Jones and some other guys, like it's a lot of brains that came together. And I told him, like, it doesn't have to be so over the top that it gets to where it's complicated, and most people can't even use half the functions on it. Like, you can probably, I'm sure, I'm just taking a shot in the dark here, but I'm sure people in like high-end SQ, they probably have these crazy DSPs that you can adjust the length of your toenail or something with it. Like, I mean, it's just like so many features and stuff. Right. Unless you're a wizard, you're never going to use all the
everyday person. Yeah, everyday person.
Yeah, you don't need that. So, and our followers and customers are more so your everyday like car audio guy. And I mean, some of them are, I guess you could say, intermediate, maybe, like they get a little on the higher end. But again, like if we came out with something that had 1,000 different functions, like the vast majority of our followers would use 20 of them. Like, so trying to find that sweet spot, and I think we did. So looking forward to that coming out soon.
So are there any unexpected challenges in launching your own brand in conjunction with being a dealer, a reseller, everything else?
Yeah, it's a really weird dynamic sometimes, because like I have these friends in the industry, Jacob for Sundown, or now Scotty, he is taking ownership of that, and Excess Power and Nick and Incriminator, and like all these people that are friends, and I've been their number one cheerleader for all these years, like when I was just selling their products. But now to be kind of transitioning into being my own my biggest cheerleader of my own brand, of course, like it makes sense. But knowing and doing that and transitioning into selling more of my own stuff, that is going to backslide some of their sales, and like there's this constant seesaw, like of if I win some, like they may lose some, like so. But you want to grow your own thing. So that's I guess one of the main, I don't know if it's a challenge, it's just a weird dynamic, like, because that like you're growing your baby, and it could cause like your friends' babies not to grow as fast. But other than that, starting a brand and getting that going it always requires capital and guts to encourage to do so, because I mean, I've seen tons of brands pop up and go out of business over the years, like me being in car audio. It happens all the time. So to be one that comes out and offers something and stands behind it and stands the test of time as well is like something, there's something to be said about it. And you have to always be learning and adapting and not offer junk product and always do a couple of prototypes and making it as good as possible for the whatever price point we're trying to hit for whatever it might be. And the people that do have issues, I mean, it's electrical component. I don't care what brand you run, you're going to have an issue sometimes. So you have to have the support there to take care of people when they do have issues. So.
And that was my next question is, what was your sales and tech support look like in general? I assume that you have a fair amount of time and effort going into that anyway, with as many products and the customer base probably. I mean, even though it's more straightforward product, you're probably assisting people who are not all that knowledgeable in what they're doing. They just want it, right? That's where they're like, I want that in my vehicle, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, over the years, our team has like constantly grown from obviously just me to now over 20 people being here. And that's to keep up with the demand of the growing brand. Yes, like a lot of people buy stuff without doing enough research and they think they can install it themselves. And yesterday, for instance, the guy that claimed he'd been installing forever, like he wanted to buy some stuff and I helped him pick out stuff or whatever. And he messages me and he's like, man, this amp it's not putting out any power. Like I got it hooked up and like just going on and on. I'm like, well, can you send me a picture of the crossover side of the amplifier? Because usually when that happens to a brand new amplifier, because we have all of our stuff QC checked, so it's not that it's impossible, but it's highly unlikely that somebody gets a brand new amp and it doesn't work out of the box. So one of the main things that makes that happen is them putting for whatever reason the amp into slave mode. So it's on. It's like they're like the clip lights coming on when I turn it up, but it's not giving my subs. Anyway, so that's what ended up what happened to this guy. And I'm like, they say they've been installing for all these years, and like that's like one of the most common things to know. Like it has to be in master mode to be putting out power, but. Anyway, just because people have been installing their entire lives doesn't mean they've been doing it properly, by the way.
or because you did it in the 80s doesn't mean that you've done it consistently since then.
Right. I've seen that so many times. People, I've had a shop for 30 years. Don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Like all these things. And then it ended up being something like that. The amp's in slave mode. I'm like, bro.
Do you find the support... Is it more straightforward giving it on your own brand versus others, or do you just hand it off to the brand if it's somebody else's brand? Or are you handling the support on all your sales, or do you say call whomever brand on certain things?
I guess it just depends on if they're having a product issue, like they think something's wrong with it or whatever. Like
something out of the
brands,
norm.
Yeah, the brands that we sell, like I think all of them actually, they want us to, like, if it's like some sort of malfunction or they think it's going to be a warranty or something like that, they want us to shoot everybody back to them, like, because us getting in the middle of like a warranty claim, we found extends or prolongs the warranty process. So we get taken out of it. So the customer is going to get taken care of as fast as possible with that. So, but obviously if it's our brand, we're doing all of it. But if it's a different brand, that brand wants to hear from them directly. So that's kind of how we do that.
So what all products are you offering now as your own under the D4S, your own brand?
Right this second, everything besides head units and or source units and subwoofers. But we have deposits made on several runs of subwoofers. So that's been something that people have been beating our doors down about for the past couple of years, and we didn't want to come out with something that was just okay. We wanted to be a good sub and good price and stuff like that. So anyway, hopefully in the next 3-ish months, they should start landing here at the doors. So almost anything that you could think of, from speakers, tweeters, sound deadening, wire, RCAs, obviously amplifiers. We have over 200 SKUs of amps. So
wow.
Then we're also coming out with, we're working on releasing a marine line, so people can use them on their boats and side-by-sides and everything like that. So very popular market there. But anyway, that's pretty much full-fledged, like almost anything you can think of. And now that we have the DSPs getting close to being here, that's another thing. And we'll work on maybe some dedicated EQs. And a lot of people ask for EQs, like
just a standalone.
Yeah. I feel like it's, I just remember people back in the day having them like mounted up under their dash, and they're down there twisting on all the knobs and everything with almost every song. And I'm like, is it really that complicated, or is that necessary? Yeah. I guess it made them feel important, like pilots when they get in planes and they're like flipping all the switches and stuff.
Feel like they're being very, very important, doing important things.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, it's not something that I'm a fan of, but it's not about me anymore. It's about answering the wants of the customer and filling the needs.
Sure. So I mean, it sounds like your growth pattern now is more cannibalizing the revenue that you do have with your own product to a certain degree, right? I mean, you're not really, well, I don't know, but I'm just saying, like you're probably staying in about the same space. Sounds like maybe expanding that, but staying on a more consistent overall growth pattern, but trying to focus more on your own brand in totality versus just doing resale, right?
Right. And like currently, I mean, the thing about, I guess, life is the only thing that doesn't change is change. Like you're always changing like things as you go along. And where, like I told you the story at the beginning, like I want to sell as many brands as possible. And now I'm like, I don't want to sell as many brands as possible. I want to like, so it changes. So right now I see us being more Down for Sound heavy, but also a lot of people know us for Sundown products or excess power products or whatever. So being like the next step is to be like a top 5, like, and then after we continue to grow the Down for Sound brand, like it might go to a 4 and then a 3, like, and just do a top 3. And I don't know what the future holds with Down for Sound, if it'll ever come to a point of we're just not moving enough of the other stuff for it to be worth our time anymore. And it's like, okay, I guess from this point forward, we'll be full-fledged Down for Sound stuff. Right. I don't know. But right now, I think it would be more realistic to be like a top 5, or maybe if we did bring it down, to do a top 3 or something like that. So that's kind of the idea right now.
Sure. Are you supporting now, or are you planning on supporting a dealer base, or are you focused on doing everything direct sales?
Yeah, so we have started moving into that area of distributors and dealers as well, because whereas when I first started, like I saw what Scar did, and I'm like, you see people do stuff and you wonder why, like why go this way or why go that way? Why did they do this? And
especially when it affects you in your end.
Right. Yeah. Cause I was a dealer for them. So I'm like, but what was the main reason for this? And there's different ways of running a business, and obviously, and it just comes down to each individual person on how they have that picture in their head of like how it needs to be ran. And one of the beauties of a business, and it's yours, you can do whatever you want to with it. Like it might piss some people off, but it's yours, and you can make the decision to do whatever you want to. So, but in his, like, you sell directly to the customer, and you're usually making more money doing that. Like when you sell you have a dealer base, like they have to make money off of it. So you're making less to sell it to them or whatever. So I guess that's the reason why he did it. But in getting started, I'm like, I know people are coming or requesting these products from us because they know me, they support me, they've been following me for a long time. So I'm just going to be selling directly to these people that have been supporting me all these years. So that was my model I'm like, I'm just going to do it the same way. I'm not going to. Scar built their brand off the backs of dealers and then cut them off. I'm like, I don't want to do that, because that seems kind of dirty to me. It actually is dirty. But anyway, I'll just come out and sell direct to the customer. I won't have a dealer base, so I won't do anybody wrong, so to speak. So anyway, I'm doing that over the years, and people that buy this stuff. A lot of them do their own installs, but a lot of people buy it because they see a video of mine and they're like, oh, I want to get a system in my vehicle. And then they get it and they're like, oh, I don't know how to install this. So what do? They run down to their local car audio shop. Hey, can you install this? Some of them say yes. Some of them say no.
And they obviously know where it came from if it's your product.
Right. But a lot of them had never heard of it. So like they start seeing this repetitive cycle of like these Down4Sound products showing up in their store, and they're like, I might need to look into this. So people or dealers start reaching out to us about becoming a dealer. And I'm like, one, like we're trying to take care of our primary business model, which was taking care of the general public first. Right. And at that point, for a while, I didn't have enough stock to take care of both. Anyway, I'm like, not at this time. Like, I'm not looking to do dealers or distributors at this time. But time went on and we increased our inventory levels and got it to a point of where we could take care of both. So last year or the year before last, we started getting a couple of dealers here and there. And then we picked up a distributor or some distributors, one in Canada, like a few in the US, some like just constantly growing. So now we're doing all of them. And now when people call and they want to be a dealer or a distributor, well, I'll say dealer. Like I think we have enough distributors right now because again, in the United States, we're kind of the number one distributor of our brand.
Right.
We're picking up dealers like all the time now. That like I went to the show last weekend in Auburn, Alabama, and the guy came up and he's like, "Man, just because you came to the show, like I'd like to open up a dealer account with Down4Sound, and I'll if you have the products here, I'll buy all of it." And he walked away with $5,000 worth of products, like just like that, just because. And that's why, again, like I go to all these shows and like I'm out there with the people and chopping it up with them. I'm giving them demos. I'm getting demos. And then you have people like that. Like since I came and supported them at like their show or their hometown, came to their hometown, which is a small town in Alabama. I mean, I guess in Auburn, like people know it for their sports or whatever, right. Yeah, it's not Atlanta, Georgia, or LA or something like that. So anyway, I came there and like they were able to come out and get the demos and like it made their day. And they're like, "Hey, you're supporting us. I'm going to support you." So I'm always trying to hit as many shows as possible for that reason because I know there's a lot of value there, and I enjoy doing it. It's really fun and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's your roots for sure. From the business angle of selling car audio, basically, what would you say has been the biggest failure point that you've overcome in that?
Failure, I feel like having a Scotty Johnson and these other guys that like I've grown alongside and like had kind of him as like a mentor, like helped me to not make as many mistakes as I probably would have. So as far as failure points, none like really popped to the top of my head because like before I do anything, like I'm always calculating risk and like doing market research and seeing what it looks like and if it'll be a good thing. I guess if I had to pick one, it would be on first runs of stuff, not ordering it so deep, because even though something in your head can be an amazing idea, even on paper, like it can be a great idea, and you're like, oh, people were saying, oh yeah, I'd love to get one of those, and like oh, well, there's a lot of people saying they want it. I think it's awesome. Let's order 1,000 of them, and then you get it in, and it's nobody crickets. Buys it. Like, and you're like,
it sounds like a good idea. I don't want to actually put money on it, but it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's probably like one of the biggest lessons I've learned is it wasn't detrimental or anything like that. But now when we do initial runs, like I'm like, okay, we're really excited about this. I remember being really excited last time and like people hyping it up a lot, and it didn't work out well. Like it took a long time to sell them or whatever. So let's bring it down a decent amount, do a couple hundred or whatever. And hey, if they fly off the shelf, awesome. We'll order more if we see them flying off the shelf. But anyway, like that's probably one of the main things. And
so on that point, what would you say is your biggest unexpected, especially with the products that you own? What would be one of the biggest unexpected successes that you're like, well, we'll make it or we'll do it or we'll offer it or whatever, and then other than your signature, what would you say would be a unexpected success?
So I'll tell you one that was like an unexpected success and a failure. Well, let's start out with the failure. As you know, like our primary customer base, or probably should know, like is your typical car audio fanatic, like not SQ so much, just like people like a lot of bass or whatever. So Jacob Scott had an idea like, oh, let's do like a throwback like big class AB amp and we'll do like a limited run or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, like what could it hurt? Like let's give it a try. So because we always hear some guy like some old school guys out there, oh, you need to do class AB, like you remember the surfboard amps and stuff like this. I'm like, all right, well let's see what we can put together. So we do the gold JP 13.2, which is like a 12 to 1300 by 2, but the thing is 4 foot long, obviously, because it's like class
right.
AB. So gold, and I think he wanted to do 250 or maybe even 500 or something. I'm like, like let's tone it down a notch. Yeah, there's people saying blah blah blah, but we should learn from like our last times or whatever. So let's just do 100. So we do 1 through 100, like they're custom engraved and look nice, and they're gold and like the golden era, or like paying homage to the golden era of like car audio. So anyway, we get them made and they're on the way, and I open up like usually if something's 2 weeks out, like I'll turn on pre-sales for them. So turned it on, and dude, they started flying off the shelf. I'm like, oh man, yeah. I'm like, well, I didn't order enough, but they're selling, and but like when they get to our door, we've already sold like half of them. We have 50 left. I'm like, oh, well, let's see if it keeps up, and it kept up, and it kept going. I'm like, well, you can't do another run of 1 through 100 gold because like we already have, or now we're gonna do 101 through like 200 or whatever. So I'm like, well, that sold out or sold great. So what about doing different colors? So I did like a poll on Facebook. I'm like, what would you like to see in the next 13.2s? And they said purple, red, and silver. So I'm like, okay, well, that was the top colors or whatever. So I'm like, okay, cool. We'll do 1 through 100 in purple, red, and silver. Mm-hmm. So we got them made, and they were close to being here. Turned on pre-orders, crickets. Like,
of course,
nothing. And we may have sold a few of them by like, and I'm talking about one of each color by the time they got in 2 weeks, and we were just sitting on them, and like there was like the demand just fell off for that. So that was a lesson learned for me, like if you do like a special edition and something in a certain color, like just let that be the one.
Let it be.
Yeah. So
it loses its uniqueness as soon as you have quantities behind it.
Right. So lesson learned there. On the other side, like an unexpected success would be we came out with the hexacone speakers. And usually like when we come out with a mid-range speaker, like we had them initially we had 6.5s and 8s, but in 4 ohm only. So usually 6.5s outsell 8s, probably 10 to 1, something like that, more because 6.5s are so like such a normal size. Sure. I was going to order, I think like 250 of the 6.5s, and then like 58s or 108s or something. And Jacob's like, no, I know these things are going to do good. They're so unique looking, and there's a lot of hype. And I'm like, I know there's always a lot of hype. That's what gets us stuck in these bad situations in the past. Like it always like it you always
start believing it.
Exactly. So I'm like, you know what? Like it's not like $1,000 amplifiers. It's 500 of something that's way cheaper. So I'm like, all right, I bumped it up to, I think it was 750 of the 6.5s and 200 of the 8s. And we sold out of those in like 2 weeks. Like they were gone. Like I'm like, oh crap. Now like you're stuck with nothing to sell for another 3 months.
Right.
So anyway, I'm like, okay, next time we know that we can so I ordered, I think 2,500 6.5s, and then like, and also in 4 and 8 ohm, and then like in the 8s we did, I want to say it was 400 of each or something like that. So anyway, we ordered a lot more, but they took off selling again. So That's been a unexpected, like, fly off the shelf item for us, as a Hexicone speakers.
Very cool. And 2 more questions.
Okay.
What would you say you're most proud of in your time in car audio? Other than, I mean, the business in general, obviously that's something to be proud of. But I mean, within that.
I would say a couple of things. One is the relationships is that I've been able to build and have with people over the years has been a really fulfilling thing, like really fruitful. The other is, and I try to like tell people, it's hard to tell people don't attach like a monetary number to success, because we're programmed by the media every day to think a person is successful by how much money they make or whatever it might be. But success should be whatever each individual person makes it, because I think it's different for every person. I am a goal-driven person, so I'm always trying to hit different goals and stuff like that. And a lot of times in business, that comes with monetary goals. But some of my happiest moments is like being able to make a lot of money, but to be able to do things for people that bring them so much happiness and joy, like seeing the smiles on their faces, like my family, like a quick rundown of like, and I wanted to take care of those that took care of me, like as I was growing up, and like that's been in my life for a long time. So my mom and dad first, like I bought them both brand new Denali trucks, her a Denali SUV, my dad a Denali Ultimate pickup truck. Last year, I bought my sister a new Jeep Rubicon with a bunch, and I lifted it and put tires on it. Going to put a system in it here soon. My youngest sister, she always had really bad teeth, and like, but she always is laughing and smiling, but she was covering up her smile. So I told her, well, like for her wedding present, I bought her a brand new smile. Like I'm gonna fix her entire. So now she has a $50,000 smile. But like to see how it impacted her and how happy she is like. And then my other sister is a foster parent to a kid, but she's a single parent. So she's always doing for others. And she had a newer vehicle, I don't know, like a 21 or 22 Pathfinder in the year before last. Like I paid that off for her and paid her rent for a year. And then I bought my wife a new Audi RSQ8. Like, and I still drive around in a 07 Chevy with, it's coming up on 400,000 miles. I'm not much on material things for myself, but like getting these things for other people, and to like, and also to take my friends like with me on trips. And I don't know, it's really fulfilling to me about experiences and making memories, and the memories of giving to these other people that mean a lot to me is just, I'll take it to the grave with me. So those have been really great times, or great moments for me in the history currently, like in the last 8 years or 10 years or whatever. So
that's very cool. And I lied, I actually have 2 more questions, but one, do you have a routine, philosophy, or what have you as far as when you do your demos? Do you have a process there when you're demoing?
Usually it's there's such a line. Like I would love for everybody to get a 5-minute demo, but like there's 100 people standing outside the door, and I'm like, if I give each person a 5-minute demo, like not only is, I don't know, 10 people going to get a demo, like it's just not feasible. So it's typically the person gets in 15 or 20 seconds of mids and highs leading up to it, slowly turning up the bass knob, and then probably, I don't know, 15 seconds of a higher level of bass, like where it's like really flapping their shirt around, blowing their hair around and stuff like that, but rarely turning it up like to clipping, because there's so much power on each sub, like it heats them up so fast it just makes it where nobody else can hear it. Right. So that's typically what it looks like. I try to keep it 45 seconds to a minute, because there's also some talking there, like, hey man, I've been watching you for so long. Like, so it may turn into a couple minute whole experience, but that's the idea behind it, is like try to get as many people as possible through there so they can experience it. And it always happens that I'm like, okay, the subs are on fire, like not literally, but they're so hot. It's like a oven coming out behind me. Like I got to let these things cool off. And the person's like, man, I drove 12 hours to hear it. I got to leave right now too. And I'm like, I know if I play this thing again, like it's
Right.
going to blow us
Cry,
up or whatever. Anyway, sometimes, most of the time I'll take a chance on it and play it like, hey man, I can give you 2 whacks. Like that's all it's got left or whatever. So I always try to like fulfill the people's dream a little bit anyway. I'm like, man, but you just caught me at the worst time, but it happens all the time.
Yep.
Like,
I get it.
So anyway.
Either to your younger self or to somebody else coming into it, what would be your primary piece of advice? Probably if you could tell yourself something 20 years ago, what would it be?
I've been saying this a lot lately, but over the years I've learned a lot from other people's mistakes, and most of the time the other people's mistakes, this is I guess more so monetary or business wise or whatever, is they celebrate too fast. So my saying is like always live 2 to 3 years behind your financial wins or your level ups, because I've seen it so many times. People, they start winning a little bit bigger, they instantly increase their spending, they go buy a Lambo or buy a $2 million house or a yacht or whatever, and then things slow down and they're like, oh crap. They're instantly out of money because they're constantly spending their stuff. So I'm a big, I don't know what you would call that, like supporter of that thought, like living 2 to 3 years behind your financial wins. And that's what I've done. And it's enabled me to always be able to, when I see an opportunity come up, like I've been able to get it every time because I've always put this money aside to live, basically living behind your or below your means, like for an extended amount of time. So, and it's not just like that in business, but it's also, it can be applied to people that work every day normally, like you having some cash reserve on tap for you or available, like some people call it an emergency fund or whatever, is never a bad thing to have, because you would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So anyway, that's kind of what I definitely didn't start out this way. I was the typical paycheck to paycheck, spend everything I made, and some, but I've noticed, since I made the changes, it's helped a lot.
No, that's good advice. Well, I think since we obviously normally discuss, sound quality and competition here, but I think it's the same way in other fields as well, and in competition where, you can, and I'm sure you've seen it on the vehicle side as well. Like you do the next big build, and all of a sudden you come out acting like a champion. It's like you haven't won anything yet. Like, got to prove it for a little bit. There's got to be a track record, and I think that's good advice. Obviously, good advice in general financially, to where you're not constantly so stretched beyond your imagination to where any hurdle is going to sink you. And it sounds like you've been exceptionally good at taking well-qualified advice along the way, and you've had those mentors along the way, which is huge, because too many people think that they have a golden finger touch on things, and
so one way to get hurt quick.
Yeah, so being able to dialogue on that level is definitely cool. I mean, and the fact that with then going into your own brand and everything, like you said, I mean, I'm sure that's still a balancing act as far as those same mentors, as far as what you're doing now. But of course, Jacob's focus has changed a little bit now and everything, so that's probably helped as well. But it's really cool that you've built those, and goes back to what you were saying on relationships. And that one of the things I've noticed about you over the years too is just you having that consistency with your relationships that very few people do at that level, and I think that says a lot for you personally. I mean, congratulations.
Yeah, you have a lot of. I appreciate it. You have a lot of people. I mean, I'm just gonna say in car audio because I'm heavy in that area, but people loyalty and I guess you could just call it loyalty, to a brand, or a person or whatever, is a thing almost of the past. Every time I turn around, somebody's hopping from one brand to the next. Oh, we're trading them out. Oh, we're going with
shit talking in between.
Exactly. And I'm like, so nothing really surprises me anymore. And people are just going to try to sell you on them and their idea of being able to get your equipment. Oh yeah, I'll run it for 4 years, or And then 6 months later, he traded it for blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yeah, the most loyal person ever could meet when they want it for free or for less money. But as soon as
100%.
as soon as it comes down to consistency and loyalty, they turn around and it's gone.
Yep.
Well, I know we've already taken up more time than I said we would. But is there anything that we didn't cover that we should know about that you wanted to cover?
No, I think we did a good job. We knocked out a bunch of different things, and it's been a pleasure to be on the SQology podcast.
Absolutely. So thanks for being on. All right. Well, we will talk soon, sir.
Yes, sir.
How about the ones we especially like?
Which ones?
You know, the ones with the cars that go.
I hear you. Hit it.